All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something you might not expect. Online gambling in Indonesia.
Yeah, it's a topic that doesn't always get the attention it deserves, but believe me, it's a big deal. We're talking technology, economics, social policy, all kind of coming together.
And it's huge, right? For this deep dive, we're looking at a recent article from Compass.com, a major Indonesian news outlet, and they're covering the government's attempts to crack down on this whole thing. And just the numbers alone in this article are pretty crazy.
Yeah, the potential market value, get this, is estimated at something like 700 trillion rupiah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's roughly like 46 billion US dollars.
Wow. Okay. So we're not talking about like a casual Friday night poker game here. That's a serious chunk of change. It makes you wonder, like, what makes this market so big, especially in Indonesia?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Indonesia has a large population, a lot of young people. Internet access is growing fast, and it's very much a mobile-first culture. So you combine all that, and it's kind of the perfect breeding ground for these online platforms to just explode,
Yeah.
even if they're operating outside the law.
So it's not just like people wanting to gamble. It's that everything's sort of lined up. You know, the technology, the demographics, it makes it super accessible. I guess that's why the government is so worried.
Oh, absolutely. The article actually quotes Nazar Patria. He's the Vice Minister of Communication and Information, and he talks about their approach to tackling this, and they're really trying to hit it from all sides, blocking accounts, launching these public awareness campaigns, even working with regional governments.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to like whack-a-mole this thing.
Yeah.
But blocking accounts, I mean, how effective can that really be? It seems like as soon as you shut one down, another one's going to pop up.
Yeah, that's one of the big challenges here. It really is like a technological arms race.
You're right.
And honestly, the more you try to restrict something, the more some people are going to want to get around it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's that forbidden fruit thing, right? It's like, oh, you can't do it. Now I really want to do it. And speaking of which, the government estimates that almost half of that massive market, like almost 400 trillion rupiah, is already active.
Yeah,
So we're not talking about a future problem. This is happening right now.
exactly. And that shows just how big the problem already is. But it also makes you wonder, how effective are the current laws and enforcement if so much is happening despite being illegal?
That's a good point. You know, like maybe people just don't know the risks, or maybe that chance of like striking it rich just outweighs any consequences.
And the article points out something else. They mentioned the Financial Transaction Reports and Analysis Center, that's PPETK. Getting them involved suggests this goes way beyond just gambling. We could be talking money laundering, serious economic damage.
Okay, hold on. PPKK, I'm not really familiar with them. Can you break that down a little?
Yeah, so PPTTK, they're like Indonesia's financial intelligence unit. They keep an eye on financial transactions, looking for money laundering, terrorism financing, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So if they're involved, it means the authorities are worried about dirty money flowing through these online gambling sites.
So it's not just about people like losing their own money on bets. This could be tied to organized crime, even funding stuff that threatens national security.
Exactly. It raises the stakes a lot.
Yeah.
It goes from protecting people from themselves to potentially protecting the entire country.
Wow. This is way more complex than I thought. And we haven't even touched on like the impact this has on people and communities, like addiction, people losing everything, families falling apart. These are real people's lives.
Yeah, and the article does mention that, they talk about the Cipto Mangunkusumo Hospital in Jakarta, RSCM, and they've already treated over 170 patients for gambling-related problems.
Wow.
And that's just in the first 10 months of this year.
So 170 patients, and that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Right, because there's so much stigma around addiction.
Yeah.
People might not want to ask for help, especially in a place where gambling is seen so negatively.
It makes the government's efforts to raise awareness even more important, but like we said before, it's a delicate balance, right?
Yeah.
They have to inform people without making it seem normal or even cool.
Definitely.
And it's not just about individual consequences either.
No, not at all. Think about families, whole communities, right? Increased crime, strain on social services, people losing trust in each other. Unchecked gambling can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's almost like this hidden tax on everyone, even people who don't gamble.
Exactly, and it can create this vicious cycle, you know? As problems get worse, you need more resources for law enforcement, healthcare, social services, and that strains budgets and takes resources from other important stuff.
It's like this tangled web of issues, this huge illegal market, the government trying to control it, and society just trying to deal with the consequences. It's a lot, honestly.
It's definitely a challenge, but, I don't think we should give up hope.
Yeah.
Just talking about it, raising awareness, that's a good first step.
True. True. Recognizing the problem has to come first, I guess. But where do we go from here? What can we actually do about all this?
Well, it's a complex problem, so it's not going to be easy, but we need to be proactive, not just reactive.
Okay, what does that look like? Being proactive.
Well, one idea is harm reduction.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, instead of just trying to ban everything, focus on minimizing the negative consequences.
Okay. Can you explain that a little more? Because I'm still not quite sure I get it.
Okay, think of it like seatbelts in cars.
Yeah.
We know seatbelts won't stop every accident, but they make injuries a lot less severe if there is an accident.
Right.
It's about reducing the damage, not necessarily getting rid of the activity completely.
Okay, so for online gambling, what would be the seatbelt, so to speak?
Well, there are a few things. You could have mandatory spending limits so people can't bet more than they can afford to lose. Self-exclusion programs where people can voluntarily block themselves from gambling sites. And of course, easy access to support and treatment if someone needs it.
So basically giving people more control over their own behavior, helping them make good choices, and being there to help if they need it. It definitely seems more compassionate and practical than just trying to block everything.
Exactly. And it recognizes that for some people, gambling can be a fun thing, if they do it responsibly.
Right, right.
So the focus becomes protecting the people who are more likely to develop problems.
And that brings us back to something you said earlier about using technology for good. Are there tech solutions out there that could promote responsible gambling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
AI and machine learning are already being used in some places to analyze gambling patterns and find people who might be at risk.
Really?
Yeah, they can spot things like sudden increases in bets, gambling late at night, even changes in how someone plays. That might be a warning sign.
That's really interesting, like a safety net. Are there any countries or organizations that are doing this really well that Indonesia could learn from?
The UK Gambling Commission, they've been doing a lot of work on harm reduction and using technology for responsible gambling. They've got a strong system, and they're always trying new things. They could be a good example for Indonesia.
Okay, so there's a model out there, something for Indonesia to build on, adapting it to their own situation. So it sounds like it's going to take a combination of things, regulation, technology, and a change in how we think about all this.
Absolutely. And we can't forget public awareness campaigns.
Right, not just telling people, don't gamble.
No, it's about educating people, giving them the tools and knowledge to make good decisions, and making it okay to ask for help.
Right, like it's not a weakness to reach out for help.
Exactly. And that's where everyone needs to work together: governments, tech companies, healthcare providers, community organizations.
It's a big task, but it sounds like there is hope.
Oh, yeah.
We've found some potential solutions, and if there's enough will to do it, and people embrace technology and are committed to harm reduction, maybe Indonesia can make online safer and healthier. This deep dive has been eye-opening. Online gambling, it's not just a legal thing or a tech thing.
Wow.
It really affects society in a big way.
It does. And like we've been talking about, finding solutions means looking at the whole picture: regulations, technology, public awareness, and a real commitment to harm reduction. But there's more to explore.
Yeah, in the next part, we'll dig deeper into how online gambling affects society and look at what we can do moving forward.
It's going to be interesting. Welcome back. So we've talked about how big online gambling is in Indonesia, but now let's look at the people, the real world impact all this has.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, but at the end of the day, this is about people's lives. The article talks about addiction, financial ruin, families breaking down. It's pretty heavy stuff.
And it's not just like a theoretical thing. The article mentions the Simpto Mangunkusumo Hospital in Jakarta, the RSCM. They've treated over 170 patients for gambling-related issues already this year.
Wow, 170, that's a lot. What kind of gambling addiction are they seeing at RSCM? Is it mostly online stuff, or is it like a mix of traditional and online?
It's probably both, but online platforms, they're so easy to access. And you're anonymous, it definitely makes things worse. And that number from RSCM, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, because of the stigma, right?
Exactly.
People might not want to admit they have a problem, especially when gambling is seen as a bad thing.
Yeah, shame. Worrying about what people think, not knowing where to get help. all that can stop people from getting the help they need. It's hard to know how big the problem really is.
So it's probably even worse than we think, which makes the government's awareness campaigns even more important.
Well,
But like we said before, they got to be careful, right? Inform people without making it seem okay or even
oh
glamorous.
yeah, it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
And it's not just individuals who are affected. Think
Right.
about the families, the communities. You see more crime, pressure on social services, less trust between people. Gambling can really mess things up.
It's like this hidden cost that everyone pays, even if they don't gamble themselves.
Exactly. And then it becomes this vicious cycle. Problems get bigger, so you need more police, more healthcare, more social workers. That puts a strain on budgets and takes away from other important things.
It's a mess, honestly. We've got this huge illegal market, the government trying to get a handle on it, and then society dealing with the fallout. It's overwhelming, almost feels hopeless.
It's definitely a challenge, but I don't think we should be pessimistic.
Okay.
The fact that we're even talking about it, that more people are aware of the problem, that's good. It's a start.
True, true. I guess you gotta acknowledge the problem before you can fix it. But what's next then? What can actually be done about all this?
Well, it's complicated, so there's no easy fix. But we got to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, what does that mean, being proactive?
One idea is harm reduction.
You mentioned that before.
Yeah, instead of trying to ban everything completely, focus on minimizing the negative effects.
Okay, explain that again, because I'm still not sure I get it.
Think of it like seatbelts in cars. Seatbelts don't prevent every accident, but they make injuries a lot less serious if you do crash.
Right.
So it's about reducing the harm, not necessarily getting rid of the activity altogether.
Okay, so what would be like the seatbelt for online gambling?
Well, a few things. You could have spending limits, so people can only bet what they can afford.
Okay.
Self-exclusion programs, where people can choose to block themselves from gambling sites.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, make sure there's support and treatment available if someone needs it.
So give people more control over their own behavior, help them make good choices, and be there to support them if they need it. That seems much better than just trying to block everything.
Exactly. And it recognizes that for some people, gambling can be fun, as long as they're responsible.
Yeah.
So the focus shifts to protecting those who might have problems.
That brings us back to using technology for good. Are there, tech tools out there that can promote responsible gambling?
Absolutely. AI and machine learning, they're already being used to track people's gambling habits and find those who might be at risk.
Really?
Yeah, they can see things like if someone suddenly starts betting a lot more or gambling late at night, even changes in how they play, that could be a sign.
That's fascinating, like a virtual safety net. Are there any countries or organizations that are doing this well, like a model for Indonesia?
Yeah, the UK Gambling Commission, they've been leading the way on harm reduction and using technology for responsible gambling. They've got a solid system and are always innovating. They could be a good example for Indonesia.
So there's a blueprint, something for Indonesia to work with, adapting it to their own situation. It sounds like it's going to take a bunch of things, regulation, technology, and a change in how we view all this.
Yeah, definitely. And public awareness campaigns are crucial too.
Right, not just saying, don't gamble.
No, it's about educating people, giving them the information and skills to make good decisions, and making it okay to ask for help.
Right, like seeking help isn't a sign of weakness.
Exactly. And for this to work, everyone needs to be involved. Governments, tech companies, healthcare providers, community groups.
It's a big job, but it sounds like there's hope.
Definitely.
We've identified some potential solutions, and with enough willpower, and if people embrace technology and commit to harm reduction, maybe Indonesia can make the online world safer and healthier.
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just about gambling.
Right.
It's about building a more responsible and resilient digital society, something that benefits everyone.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. Online gambling, it goes way beyond just laws and technology.
Yeah.
It's a societal issue with huge consequences.
It is. And like we've been saying, finding solutions means looking at everything: regulations, technology, raising awareness, and being committed to harm reduction. But there's even more to uncover.
For sure. In our final part, we'll look at some specific initiatives that are showing promise in tackling this global challenge and leave you with some things to think about, how we can navigate this digital world together. All right, so we're back and ready to wrap up our look at online gambling in Indonesia. We've talked about how big the problem is, how it affects society, even some possible solutions. But let's get into specifics now, like what's actually working out there that Indonesia could learn from.
Well, there are some pretty innovative approaches happening around the world. One that's really interesting is the GamStop program in the UK. It's a national self-exclusion thing. People can block themselves from every single online gambling site that's licensed in the UK.
So like a one-stop shop for self-exclusion?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to go to each site individually. You just sign up with GameStop and boom, you're blocked from all of them. That seems super helpful, especially for someone who's struggling with addiction.
Right. Takes away the temptation, makes it much harder to fall back into old habits. And because it's nationwide, it covers a ton of sites.
Yeah,
So it's way more effective than trying to block yourself from each one separately.
that's a great idea. It gives people control.
Yeah.
What other programs or initiatives are out there that seem to be working?
Another interesting approach is using personalized messages and nudges. Some platforms are trying this thing where they use data to spot potentially harmful behaviors and then send tailored messages to encourage people to gamble responsibly.
So, like, if someone starts betting way more than usual or they're gambling at like 3 in the morning, they might get a message that says something like, hey, we've noticed a change in your activity. Remember to gamble responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little reminder to be mindful.
Kind of like a virtual tap on the shoulder.
Exactly. And these little nudges can actually be pretty effective. Studies show that even simple things like that can make people stop and think and maybe make better choices.
Makes you wonder, like, what else could we do with technology to tackle this? What about apps that help people track their spending, set limits, or connect with support groups?
Oh, there are already apps and resources out there, and it's a growing area. Some even use gamification, making it fun to learn about responsible gambling.
Oh, that's clever. Kind of turning the tables, right?
Yeah, using the same things that make gambling addictive to promote healthy habits instead.
I like that. And of course, we can't forget good old education and awareness campaigns, right? Got to start early, teaching young people about the risks of gambling and how to make smart choices.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individuals. We need to create a culture where asking for help with gambling addiction is normal, encouraged, like any other health issue.
Right? It's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. And that means breaking down the stigma, changing how people think, and making sure support services are available and easy to access. It's a long game, but it's essential if we want real change.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. Online gambling, it's not just about laws or tech, it's about everything.
It really is. It's about technology, education, public health, what society thinks.
And it's a global problem. We can learn from each other, right?
Yeah.
Sharing what works, doing research together, coming up with common approaches, that could really help.
Absolutely. It reminds us that we're all in this together. People all over the world are coming up with creative solutions.
Right, so much to learn from each other.
As we wrap up, here's something to think about. Online gambling, it's probably here to stay. Our world's so connected. So how can we, as individuals, communities, countries, shape this thing to minimize the harm and make things better for everyone?
That's a big question, but an important one. We've seen the challenges, the complexities, but there's hope, too. The future of online gambling, really, the future of our digital lives, depends on the choices we make. Thanks for joining us.